Welcome to A Date with Darkness podcast, where I will be discussing the impact of hurtful and abusive relationships and how to overcome them so that you can move through your pain and get to the kind of healthy relationships you want, need, and deserve. I'm Dr. Natalie Jones. I'm a licensed psychotherapist based in California. While I hope that you find this podcast educational and informational, please note it should not be substituted for treatment with a licensed mental health professional. Also, due to the nature of the podcast, some of the information presented on the show can be sensitive to some of my listeners, so please note that listener discretion is advised. Hello and welcome back to another installment of A Date with Darkness. I'm so happy to have you here with me, and I hope that everyone out there is taking care of themselves and staying safe. So, again, with the housekeeping, we always like to get that out of the way up front. If you're looking for support or if you're wanting to give support to others, mutual support to people who are currently in the process of healing from an abusive relationship, or you yourself are in the process of healing from an abusive relationship, come on over and join us in our free Facebook group, A Date with Darkness Facebook group. Love to have you there. As always, we like to keep the conversation going on social media, A Date with Darkness on all social media platforms. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please visit me at adatewithdarkness.com or email me at adatewithdarkness@gmail.com. Thank you so much again for tuning in. It's been a heck of a week, but I'm happy that you're here and wanting to wind down with me. And again, I have a guest that was previously on the show, and I had a lot of demand for her to come back and expand on some things, and she was kind enough and gracious enough to do so. So I did bring back private investigator Anna Stowe, and she's here to talk with us about some of the topics that my listeners asked her to take a deeper dive into. So without further ado, here is Anna. Hello, welcome to the show, Anna.
Hi, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you for agreeing to come back. A lot of people were, they were just so intrigued by everything that you had to say, and they just found it so fascinating, as well as do I, of course. But for people that may just be tuning in for the first time or maybe didn't catch your episode, can you tell us who you are and what you do?
Sure. I am Anna Stowe. I own two different investigation companies. So one is Anna Stowe Investigations. You can find me out there on the net under that name. And we do a variety of work, both for attorneys and the public. The types of attorneys we work with are just varied. Public, I work some public defense. I work with private defense attorneys for criminal defense, personal injury, civil attorneys, litigation attorneys, you name it, we work with them. So we do some workers' comp, surveillance, we do medical malpractice, fraud cases. For the public, we do a lot of family law type investigations. So that could be, what is my ex doing with the children when it's my partner's visitation time? And it could vary from, is my spouse cheating? Is my girlfriend cheating? But we help kind of situate, I'm just forgetting everything right now. We help with prenuptial agreement investigations. So that would be, has someone in the partnership done something to cause the prenup to be broken or invalid? So we do those investigations, asset investigations. You're getting ready to sue someone. So you've been in a car accident, or someone has damaged your property, and you want to know if you have a sufficient amount of funds to go after with the other person. So we do asset checks, and we can check property and vehicles pre-judgment, and then we can check bank and brokerage accounts post-judgment for people.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's the number one thing that people come to you for?
Well, for the public,
Yes.
it's generally relating to a relationship issue.
Okay. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
What's the number one relationship issue they typically come to you for?
I would say it's equal. Is my partner cheating? Along with what is my partner doing with the kids when it's visitation time?
Yes, and I know that you mentioned that last time. And I don't know that we went into this particular aspect, but one of the questions that I have for you is, why do people need to snoop or need to kind of have that information? What is your take on that?
Okay. There are quite a few situations that we come across fairly consistently. And when there are small children involved who maybe aren't verbal yet or are just too young to really answer questions or give the other parent any kind of security about what goes on during visitation time, the custodial parent often wants to know what is going on. They have a feeling, they've heard rumors, somebody is telling them that their ex is dropping the children off somewhere else during their visitation time and really not spending time with the children. So my client, the custodial parent, wants to know who's watching the children, what they're doing with the children, and what the ex is doing instead of minding the children. So it can become quite complicated. If you say you're a woman and you've divorced your husband or you've separated from your partner because there has been domestic violence or drug use, something like that, criminal activity, and the court has awarded the other parent some parenting time, you want to make sure that your child's safe. Of course, you're going to worry, and you want to make sure your child is safe during that visitation period. And then if you hear that they're actually not with the child or children, they're actually dropping them off with somebody else, maybe somebody you don't know, then that's very scary.
Can you tell me, in your opinion, how much of that is concern versus control?
That's a really good question. I would say most of the time, I would give it maybe an 80 or even 90% figure on there is something really wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It sounds like, from what I hear you say, people's top concerns are money and secrets.
Yes.
And, money, secrets, or / dishonesty.
Sure.
So it sounds like you've seen a lot of things out there that have been incredibly heinous, maybe.
Yes.
Are you able to talk about some of the more heinous things that you've observed, or no?
I am. I'll, of course, have to keep it very general.
Sure.
I think some of these cases really stick with me.
Sure.
They're not pretty cases.
Absolutely.
They're the worst things that people can do to each other. And one of those can be where the ex doesn't take the breakup well and decides to harm the children to get back at the ex-spouse. And that's a criminal act. And I've seen it where a child has minor injuries.
Wow.
I've also seen it where the child or the children are no longer alive.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
So it pays to check out what's going on.
Wow.
And of course, sometimes the for in this instance, we'll use the wife really doesn't know that the person is capable of that their ex is capable of actually harming the children. That's few and far between. Normally there are red flags throughout the relationship, maybe not directed at the children, but definitely directed at the spouse. There has been violent talk about harming someone, the wife, the children, the dog, the neighbor. We have a hair trigger temper and we go off in really minor situations, poor impulse control, poor emotional control, or no emotional control, immature emotional aspect of a person. And then it can lead to really tragic results.
Let's back up for a second, because I think
Sure.
this is really interesting. And I don't know how deeply you get involved in such a case like that, where children are being harmed or things like that, versus CPS, Child Protective Services.
Mm-hmm.
So going back, when people are calling you about that, hey, I think something's going on with my ex and the children.
Mm-hmm.
What signals are going up for them where they're sort of questioning that, just for the listeners who are listening out there and could potentially be going through something similar?
It's so I'll give you kind of a profile.
Sure.
The wife, in most cases, will say to me, my husband was never interested in being with the children. They annoyed him. I was the major caregiver. He wouldn't help out. He was absent, just an absent father,
Mm-hmm.
not meaning that he was away, but that could be as well, but that he just didn't regard the children when they were in his presence. So now the court has awarded a very minimally involved father some custody time that includes either a long stretch of a day or some overnights. And the mother, the wife, is freaked out about that. Like, he's never parented them. He's never changed a diaper. They annoy him. He gets angry with them. They're too small. They're children. They cry and it annoys him. So that's a sign. That's kind of a profile. Now you know that the ex-spouse has asked for this custody time to get back at the wife,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
So it's not that he has interest in the children, it's all about control. Okay. So when I start hearing those signs, I become more concerned. If there's a substance abuse history, then you wonder what's going on with the children during the other person's parenting time, because they haven't been sober or clean and sober in years. So you know that the addiction is more than likely continuing even when the children are there. So that's a sign of concern. High risk behavior. Maybe there's a mental illness going on and the person exhibits high risk behavior, driving 100 miles an hour with a child in a car seat, things like that. Those signs are the things I hear when people call me and say, I want to know what's going on with my children when they're with him.
Okay. So
Okay.
they come to you with these concerns. You start looking into it. Do you also encourage them to go to Child Protective Services too, or do you kind of how does that work?
We do. We always offer those services. I do get clients that are hesitant to get the government involved in their
I can see.
life, in their lives. There's so many horrible stories out there that sometimes it backfires and it comes back on the client that's called me. So it's really up to them. I provide those resources. I encourage them in situations where the children may be in imminent danger.
Okay, so I
Please.
imagine that you're licensed and bonded with the work that you do. Does that
Yes.
mean that you're also a mandated reporter? If you do observe these things,
If
happening
we're,
to
if,
children?
yes, if we're out, we're not mandated.
Yeah, okay.
But let me tell you, I'm like an attorney. So if someone told me that they murdered someone, I am going to notify the authorities.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm obligated to do that by law,
Okay.
but I'm going to. If I think children are in danger, or one of my surveillance operatives is out in the field and visually sees or can hear abuse happening, they know that they have my permission to call 911. Just bring law enforcement to the area where you are right now.
Okay.
Okay. It's different for every investigator.
Mhm.
That's my choice.
Yeah, because you're a mom.
Well, and I'm human, and I don't want
Mhm.
anyone suffering, right?
And I imagine you see quite a bit of that in your work.
Yes. Yeah. And because I'm involved in criminal defense, it's all suffering
Mhm.
of all kinds. And defendants, defendants have suffered too. Yeah.
So what do you do when you find out concerns have been substantiated?
Well, I can give you an example. I
Okay.
think we may have talked about it last time. I had a surveillance operative follow dad from the exchange place. He drove a few miles and dropped a young child off
Yeah,
with somebody that was living in a garage.
you did
This
mention.
was not anyone that my client gave me the address for, or that should be caring for the child. So
Mhm.
it's outside of her knowledge, in an area she didn't know,
Wow.
with a man who was living in a garage. And I would describe the man as looking methamphetamine user,
Mhm.
long-term. So I called her immediately. I don't tell people, we went into this last time too,
Yeah.
I don't tell people addresses, but I called her and told her I was going to call 911. And she was okay with that.
Okay.
She did follow through with CPS as
Okay.
well.
Okay.
So within a very short time, I think this was an ex-partner, was given supervised visitation only, which was the
Okay.
right call.
Okay. But
Right.
traditionally speaking, you usually give them a report and it could substantiate what they say. And then with that information, is it just between you and your client, or do they take it to, a judge, their attorney, and then do you have legal obligations?
It generally, it goes to an attorney at some point. If they're
Yes.
fighting a custody battle,
Yes.
then my client's attorney is going to receive the report. And those reports that we create are court ready. So they can be submitted as kind of expert opinion.
Yes.
And then sometimes I am called, or my operative will be called to
Sure.
testify as to what they recorded or what they saw that day. But generally the report is enough to do the trick.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. That's good, because I was wondering about that, how much of your work is tied up in terms of court.
Right.
Wow. So that's just as a personal note, do you ever lose faith in humanity?
Yes, I would actually go as far as to say I'm fairly jaded.
Mhm.
And when, fortunately, I have, I have my own spiritual beliefs. I'm an optimistic person by nature. I'm able
Mhm.
to ride the wave of just, like I said, the worst that people can do, and know that when I go home, that is not the case. This is not the case. I can compartmentalize it fairly
Sure.
well and leave it and go play with my grandchildren. But my children will tell you it did impact their growing up,
I was
because
curious about that. That was my next question.
yes, they were not allowed to go to the mall by themselves until they were probably 16. And they will tell you that was very embarrassing for them. I had to be present, or another parent had to be present if they went out somewhere
What was your
public like that.
concern? What was your concern?
Um, at the time, it was, my daughters were small and petite, and I just thought you're easy pickings. You're just, somebody could pick you up and run with you.
Interesting.
No problem.
Yeah.
And I had just worked too many cases where too many bad things had happened to teenage girls, whether it was from the mall, school, on the way home from school, driving with another person from school, anything like that. I just needed to know that I could handle my job as long as I knew the kids were okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want, maybe selfishly, I did not want the extra anxiety of knowing they were out somewhere where they were vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A lot of times I get asked by people, you're a therapist. Do you analyze everybody? And so I'm curious to know that about you, like in your personal life as an investigator. Do you analyze people that come into your life? Do you do background checks? Do you kind of scope people out before you allow them to be a part of your inner circle?
I will say I am very careful about who's in my inner circle.
Mm-hmm.
I have known them for a long time. They're people I trust and respect. If they're new, I would say it would depend. It would depend. I might, well, let's just say I did check out my 2 sons-in-law prior to them marrying my daughters.
Mm-hmm.
I check out, my brother has a traumatic brain injury. He's in a care home. I checked out everyone there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they have to be fingerprinted, but I still did it. Fingerprints don't cover everything.
Yeah.
So when it comes to my family, my small family that I consider my nuclear family now, I do check people out if they're going to have that trusted position. People that come into my house to look after my mom when I'm not around, yeah, of course they are. Yeah.
Have you ever found something?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Not when it comes to my inner circle. It makes me feel like my instincts are good, but I'm just saying you can't always trust that.
You really can't.
So
very true.
It pays to go the extra mile.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. How do you feel about it? Having to do that or wanting to do that? How do you
I feel like it's a normal part of what I do.
Okay.
Every day.
Okay.
So it doesn't bother me. I have been hired occasionally, say by churches, to check out people that have volunteered to handle the money or make the deposits. So, this person could be in your church for 30 years. They've just now asked if they can be on the finance committee or the tithing committee, whatever it is. And it's wise. It's just wise to check it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that something you recommend for most people? It sounds like you feel very secure in your decisions to check people out. Would you, and I'm certainly not asking you to go too far out on a limb, but do you think that should be something that we do as people in general?
Yeah, the psychology of it is, it is. I'm so, like I said, jaded. I'm so biased toward it that I would say, yes. I think if you're in high school and you're dating a high school student, you don't need to worry about that. If you get, I know plenty of people that got married right out of high school. Obviously, they've grown up with this person. They know everything about them, right? If you're my age and I'm in my 50s and I decide to date someone, I'm going to check them out. I just am.
Okay.
I think it's wise to do that. There's so many scams. There's so much fraud out there that it just pays to check them out, no matter where you meet them, no matter where.
I agree. You spoke last time about, I swear I keep turning my phone off, and every time I'm like, okay, maybe I didn't turn it off because the volume is like, it keeps going off. Okay, so my apologies. But, you know, you had talked a little bit about the dating scam.
Yes.
Everyone is into online dating, and I'd like to revisit that because there were a lot of queries about that.
Sure.
And not to mention, I also work with a lot of, professional millennial women or people that just, we're in COVID right now. They just don't get out much. So online dating seems to be the way to go, right?
Sure. Sure.
And, the women I work with don't really like it. They're professional women. They don't really like it. And so they're going to get like people in droves that are just insane, for lack of a better word, but they just don't know. So let's take a look and talk about the online dating scam in, if we could take a deeper dive, like what women, I know you said they're lonely, but if we could break it down a little bit more and talk about the profile of a person that is scammed versus the scammer. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I think there's some psychology that goes into building your profile on a dating app.
Okay.
I think it is so multifaceted. So I remember way back in the day, I mean, this was years and years ago, I went on eHarmony and I built a profile. I was honest about the things that I really like to do. And I heard from two people almost like within days who asked me if I weighed over 300 pounds because my profile read like an obese woman. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. I didn't think about that. I was true and honest about the things that I like to do. And there was some outdoor activity in my profile, but they said I sounded fat on my profile. So I think, I know. And this is also their way of trying to get a picture of you so they can just, because on your profile, it's generally a face, whatever. Yeah. Nowadays, I have no idea what it is, but then it was a face and they want a full shot of your body, in clothing so they can see if you're going to meet their body type, whatever. And so I was just so put off by that I never went any further with it.
That's most women, right? Will see, yeah.
And it was weeding through so many profiles that didn't really match what I said I wanted. So I was wondering how the matching was going on. Like, how's the system matching me with people who are so outside of the profile that I said I was looking for? So I know plenty of people who have met on eHarmony and are married and happy. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
It's not for me, but it has worked for other people.
Yeah.
Today's apps, there's so many. I think you really should think about and craft a profile that does explain who you are in truthful terms, but not give away too much.
Okay,
so let me expand on that. So say you're a successful attorney and you put that in your profile. You have now alerted every scammer that you have money.
Yeah.
Okay. You put they always encourage you to put, group pictures in there as well, not just your face, but you with family or whatever. Please don't include your children because there could be people out there that are not looking at you, but looking at meeting your children.
Mm-hmm.
So just be careful, be cautious. Don't allude to the fact that you have money. You don't have to allude to the fact that you're poor either, but money shouldn't come up in your profile, whether you have it or don't. Okay. Yeah.
Should you list what you do in terms of because I think some of them ask about what your occupation is and like highest level of education and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So what should you list?
The good sites will give you an option to say that it could be revealed later, but it's
Okay,
not on your front profile.
good.
So in other words, you're going to get to stage, open communication, and then that can be revealed. So if you have 20 prospective matches and 15 of them are asking to go straight to open communication, they want to know how much money you have, what your body looks like, all of that. They want to know more personal things about you right away.
So that's a red
red flag.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Any other big red flags that we know or that we can determine right away?
Too much too soon.
Okay.
So recently, a friend of mine contacted me and said, I've met the perfect guy, but there's something about him I want you to check out.
Uh-oh.
And so she Facebook messaged me everything that he had sent her, his picture, his passport. He's working in some other state. They're always somewhere else. And, but he's wealthy. It's, he's doing the romantic talk to her like she's never heard before. And I said, let's give him a few days. He's within days of asking you for money. And so the scammers go from, it's so nice to meet you, to I need money within a month or a few weeks. Okay. And they're love bombing you the whole time.
Oh yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And
With the
it's definite
scammers, I'm sorry. With the scammers, you never meet them, right?
No,
Yeah.
you'll never see them in person because they're not in the United States.
Okay. All right.
Right.
So I don't know if there's any that are more savvy and that you actually meet them in person, or if that's few and far between in your line of work.
Those are fewer, but they do happen, and they're targeted to rich or wealthy women. And everyone's version or picture of rich and wealthy can be different. Sometimes that can mean you own your own home and you drive a nice car and you have a good profession. That can be enough. Other times they really are after affluent women. They check the papers all the time for obituaries. Survived by my wife, so-and-so. I was this, beloved, my beloved husband passed away. He was the CEO of such and such. And, I'm his surviving widow. They get calls. I mean, the people will just start trying to figure out how to contact them. And they do it in very subtle ways. They'll stalk you, they'll do surveillance on you and figure out a way to meet you. Then they charm you and kind of knock you off your feet with so much attention, so much love. They'll ask you questions to get into your head about, you have this nice long-term marriage. What were a few things you didn't like? And then they'll take those and reverse them into things that you do, like, flowers every day, whatever your thing is, they will love bomb you with that. And what they're looking for is for you to marry them. They are looking to get married to get your assets. Yes.
What's the worst outcome you've seen in a situation like this?
I had a client in her 50s. Her husband died. She waited a few years to date. She and her husband bought investment property. They own property all over in nice places. she herself was a professional and very good at her industry and made her own wealth as well. But she also had his wealth. And this guy waited very patiently to run into her. And by the time they divorced, she was down to maybe 2 properties. He had cleaned out all of her bank accounts, retirement, you name it. Everything was gone except for these 2 properties.
That's insane. And was that something he won during the process of the court, or something he like managed to finagle through another scam?
He went into her accounts and transferred money. And when you go to law enforcement and you say, my husband stole my money.
Community property.
Mm-hmm. Especially when you've shared your passwords, you're open and honest with your partner. You've been married 5, 7, 10 years to this person, and they know everything. You trust them. They've put in the time to make sure you trust them. And then one day you, for whatever reason, go to see your financial advisor and everything's gone.
How
So
devastating.
yes,
That's
very.
very devastating. And how common is that? Because I've seen that on TV too, but
sure.
how common is that?
To have it get that far to where you have been taken down so much in your wealth is not that common. It happens. Usually if it's discovered, if you're a savvy person, you are checking your accounts. You're not letting things go years before you look in there.
Mm.
You are not giving the new husband access or authority to make changes for you. You're not doing that. And I practically beg women, if you're on your second marriage, third, whatever, you have amassed some wealth, please protect it. Please protect it. You can still trust your husband, and he can still not have access to your funds. That doesn't mean you don't trust him. It just means you're protecting what you worked for and you gained without him, right? It's yours. You came into the marriage with it. He came into the marriage with his wealth, right? Whatever he brought into it. There's really no reason. You can mingle what you do together from that point on, but that wealth that you amassed before then, that should never, in my opinion, that should never be touched by him.
Never. Yeah. And I agree. There's, a couple questions I have around that. The first thing is, do they know, or is it just something they just don't want to believe?
I believe that women are very intuitive.
Yeah.
By nature. I think it's a lot of it has to do with your personality and just who you are as a person. So some people, men and women, prefer not to know things. It's easier. I mean, if you don't know that men, women, and children are dying in Syria, then you don't have to deal with the emotions of that. Right? If you don't want to write a check, don't want to be responsible for the household bills, don't want to be involved in those conversations, you just want to be able to do your life without worrying about any of that, you will be vulnerable.
Interesting. So, because in my mind, if someone has amassed wealth, especially old wealth, and I think a lot of people would think this, well, surely they must be smart. Surely they wouldn't just allow anyone to sort of have access to their money. Or surely, they, just being of that caliber, that they would be a little bit more protective and smart and savvy around their worldly possessions.
So, yes. The heart does strange things to people.
Absolutely, it does.
So I have I have right now a very smart client, very, very, she's older, she's very good looking, she's fit, she's active. She is she is a catch. There are numerous people out there that would just love to spend time with her, right?
Mhm.
And the man she has chosen to be with at this time is not nice to her. He gaslights her quite often. He talked her into buying a house that's 2 hours out of town, that puts her at a distance from all of her family, her children, grandchildren. It's awful. And she, I did the background check a year ago.
Okay. And
They're married and she's having problems.
did you come up with anything on the background check that signaled?
Yes.
And so she went ahead with it, despite what you came up with.
What I came up with was a history of financial immaturity. So there is something about my client that allows her to choose men that are not emotionally mature. And it's so sad.
She's a rescuer, it sounds like.
She's a rescuer, and she loves being able to give people what they want. And she's generous. I mean, generous to a fault, but she will never get out of him what she craves, which is unconditional love and affection.
It sounds like she might get a lot more in return, actually. I mean, from what you're saying, she might get robbed out of everything she's worked hard for.
Yes, or worse. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't like the seclusion that is now
It's
there,
never a good sign.
the isolation. It kind of makes my spidey senses stand up on end. They have no neighbors. It's so reclusive out there that anything could happen and nobody would know.
That sounds dangerous.
Her children have begged her and asked her to just get rid of him. Just say no, just walk away, do whatever you need to do. And she's hesitant to let the relationship go.
So what is your role in all this then? Because I hear you in terms of what you're doing, but then it sounds like, which is common, that the heart wants what it wants, or, things were bad when I came to see you. And, maybe after I came to see you, things got good again. We fell in love again. And so all is well now. So I don't need you. Like, where's your role in all this? Like, what do you do? Because I can sense that you've been working on this for quite some time, but I almost wonder, like, is your advice, your intel being heeded?
No, but we did make some progress that she started seeing a therapist. And that was not something she was willing to consider a year ago.
Interesting.
So that's progress. I think her children have really encouraged it, which makes a difference. But she has decided that he's cheating. But I don't think that's it. I think he's emotionally unavailable because he is, as old as he has a very fragile, immature ego. And he does things to mess with her head because he enjoys it.
Mm-hmm.
So I've pointed her to all the narcissism resources. She has looked at them. She says she has read them. She's participated in a online group, asked questions. She is in the stage where she just wants to know why he behaves this way. And I have talked to her and said, it doesn't matter now.
Yeah.
He just is. Let's just wrap it up in a bow and say he is. And you're never going to get what you want out of this relationship. So how long do you want to stay in it? if it's, I mean, she tells me this is very unsatisfying for me. I'm not, I mean, he withholds affection all the time. She's very affectionate. She's interested in sex. He's not. And like I said, she's a very beautiful, very fit woman, very attractive. I could see no reason why anyone would not be attracted to her. And he uses it against her. He just messes with her all the time. It's really sad, but she's not ready yet. She's not ready to admit that she chose poorly, that he isn't going to get any better. This isn't a problem that therapy is going to cure for him. It might her, but not him.
So again, what is your role in all this?
Well, we've gone into kind of a different stage now.
Okay.
So now we're doing a few things just to find out whether or not he's cheating, which I do not think he is.
Good.
So
okay.
It's important to her to find out. So we're helping her with that. Other than that, I mean, she has really dropped a lot of money on this. I mean, a significant amount of money on this property.
It sounds like it.
And new vehicles, etc. And her well is deep. And I just don't know what his MO really, what his end game is with her. So I'm I cautioned her, please do not allow him access to your bank accounts, your brokerage accounts. Make sure your will and your trust is updated and that everything goes to your family, and make sure that he knows that. And she tells me all the right things. Oh, he knows that. We've discussed it. And I just know he's going to bring it up. He's going to want the house. He's going to want this and that. You can give your kids everything else, but I want this. And then pretty soon it'll be, well, I'm the one, I've been with you for 10 years. I deserve more. I want a bigger piece of the pie. And that's just how it goes.
It sounds like she's sort of taken on his financial immaturity.
Yeah, in a way she has. She really has. And
so you're gonna have to watch that.
It's really sad. I can't tell you how much this impacts me, but it's she didn't really want to move that far away. She didn't want to spend that much money either. And here she did. So there's something. So what I tell her is there's something about this that works for you for now. Try to figure out with your therapist what that is. What is working for you in this? Because you had the opportunity to end it a year ago. And you did end it for a couple of months. And then for whatever reason, you got back together with him. So work on that. Find out what it is that's working for you. It's really self-destructive.
Yeah, it's really self-destructive. But the theme, I guess, the overarching theme is people want to believe the good in people.
Yes.
Right? It sounds like they want to believe that despite all the evidence that you're giving, they want to believe that people are good. And sometimes even when you hand them concrete evidence in black and white and photos, they just refuse to accept that because they want what they want.
Yes.
Denial is a very serious thing.
It's denial, but I wonder how much of it too is any attention is better than no attention. And so I think I started to think about this particular client because she's, mirror image of a lot of clients I've had over the years. Does she like having a relationship that is difficult And I would hope that would not be the case, but it gives her a lot to talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives her a lot to say, hey, I am the good one here, and I am not being treated well.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that necessarily yet she's a martyr, but I think she's headed that direction. And her children are like, just stop, break up with him, do whatever you have to do to get rid of him.
Yeah.
We don't like him. He is not right for you. He is manipulative. He's controlling.
It sounds like a fair amount of you. You're fairly emotionally involved in the case too. It sounds like.
It's hard for me to, gosh, it's so hard to separate. I will say, when I go home, that part of my brain does really shut off.
Mm-hmm.
I have to, or I'm going to drive myself crazy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So, but it is difficult to be on the phone and not feel sad and disappointed that someone so successful, so great, beloved by her family, would throw herself into this kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a lot we can do with that.
No.
Is there a time when you think to yourself, after seeing what you've seen and doing what you're doing and just sort of all these cases and all this stuff that comes with it,
Sure.
have you ever thought to yourself, I don't want to do this anymore?
No.
Okay. So what keeps you going back?
Yeah, I think I actually really love my job. There are certain types of cases like this one that I don't particularly love because it does bring on so much just emotional energy in me. It's a high emotion type of job with very little payout for me, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the parts of my job I do like, I love, and I want to continue doing them. And then this is the kind of case that comes along every once in a while that doesn't feel good.
Yeah, and it also is a real eye opener on another aspect. A lot of people get frustrated when they have someone that they care about that's involved in a relationship with a narcissist, right? And they, a lot of times people will often complain or state that, my sister is involved with so and so and who's a narcissist, and she reached out to all these people but couldn't get help from the system, right? That could be law enforcement, that could be attorneys, it could be all these different people which they reach out to. And this is it. I think it shows the other side, whereas even if these people reach out for help, right, or they reach out for some sort of service, right, and they know you tell them black and white what they have, they just don't want to see it until they're ready. And that could be, as you said, years before they're even ready to do that. And by that time, it may be too late. So I think it highlights that aspect of it that, people grow frustrated with, or they don't necessarily understand.
I think not everybody, is versed in narcissism.
Sure.
They think, hey, I'm doing the best I can. I described my own narcissistic relationship with my first husband, where I thought, I'm just losing my mind. He's puts me on a pedestal one day, and then, a few days later, I'm the worst person in the world. Like, no one is worse than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't understand how he could feel those two conflicting things about me at the same time, all the time. And he was fine with it. It didn't impact him to act that way. It impacted me. So I did a lot of the research. I don't know that sometimes when you're deep in it, I think it's just survival kicks in, and you're just trying to get through the day, and you don't have time to really try to analyze your partner. You're just trying to survive. And so sometimes women do come to me after long-term relationships. And we talked about it last time. I mean, they just don't recognize themselves anymore.
Yeah.
Their goals and dreams have been gone for a long time.
Yeah.
And now they're trying to divorce someone who really was never emotionally connected to them ever. So, and that person just doesn't care, or they do care, but it's the wrong kind of caring. They're filled with revenge, retribution. They're going to cause you pain because you dared to leave them. So it's complicated. I wish more people knew about it.
Yeah.
I wish, we can talk about sociopaths, so closely mirror narcissists that I feel for the women that are sitting in a therapist's office over and over again with their husband or not, and they can't get anywhere. They just can't get anywhere to make things better.
Absolutely.
Trying really hard and nothing works.
Yeah.
And I just want to tell them it's not you. It really has nothing to do with you. Feels very personal, right? You're in this relationship, that's personal, but it really has nothing to do with you. It's that fragile little boy ego over there that can't harbor any shame whatsoever that is doing this. You're normal. He's not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's unfortunate. There's a lot that goes on there in those dynamics. And yeah, I sympathize with your clients that are kind of going through this. And thank you so much for doing the work that you do.
Yeah.
How can the listeners find you if they want to contact you or they want to look something up on somebody?
Yes. Okay. So they can always reach me through my website, which is www.stoweinvestigations.com. My phone number is 916-224-4680. I do have an office in Carmichael. You can always call and make an appointment. We can meet in person. It's socially distanced and masked at this point. We can also meet over one of the teleconferencing apps like Zoom, FaceTime. We can have a phone call. You can email me at Anna, ANNA, at stoweinvestigations.com as well. And that always comes directly to me and we can chat over email.
Nice. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd be happy to know what your thoughts were on the show. Anytime I interview my guests, I have a lot of fun, but I just have to say, just taking a deeper dive into PI work and criminal justice work is always super intriguing. I feel like I learned something new every time, every single time. And I never stop being fascinated by it. So it's good to have another objective insight into what goes on with people when they have someone investigated. Let me know what you think. Thanks so much. And until next time, take care of yourselves, stay safe, and be well.